In this video, I discuss what you need to do right now if you're running behind in retirement preparation and savings. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
In the blink of an eye, we go from entering the workforce to having a retirement date in mind. The stuff in the middle is almost always fuzzy because a lot of people go through what's called mañana syndrome, tomorrow syndrome. I will open my 401k, or I'll set up my 401k with my employer tomorrow. I'll buy my first house tomorrow. I'll pay off the credit card tomorrow. But the problem is, as life rushes past us, tomorrow never happens. And for many people, they enter retirement completely unprepared and say, now what do I do? If this is you, this video will discuss what you need to do now to prepare for retirement in the not too distant future. There are basically three different levers people can pull to prepare for retirement. The first is the amount that they contribute over their work life. The second is the timing of that amount and the return that they get on that amount. And the third is how they spend their funds in retirement. There are two things that are probably true. The first is that you don't believe you've contributed enough to your retirement savings. And the second is that you don't know how much time you have left and if that is enough time to catch up on your retirement savings and prepare for retirement. And frankly, you don't want to live on Social Security alone or Social Security and a modest income stream from your investments. And you might be worried that you have to have a part-time job in order to supplement your modest income because you don't have enough to manage your costs when you retire. So please make sure you watch this video all the way to the end because the information is quite important and there's a lot of it. It's easy to understand, but it is information that is sequential, meaning you have to watch the first part to understand the second to understand the third, etc. We've all heard the story that at 20 years old, if we simply put $10,000 into an S&P 500 index fund, earning 12% or circa 12%, by the time we hit 60, so 40 years later, that amount would be worth $1.6 million. The math is true, of course, but it's also a little misleading. The first reason it's misleading is that if you are, say, 60 years old today, that would have made you 20 years old in 1982. And in 1982, how many 20-year-olds do you know of that had $10,000? By the way, in November of 1982, the Consumer Price Index was at 98. Today, it's 297, so it is 3 times larger. $10,000 in 1982 would have been the equivalent of $30,000 today. How many 20-year-olds do you know of that have $30,000 to invest in the market? The second is that the assumed financial knowledge that you have today also existed back then, and that the market performance would have been calling to you back in the day. The fact is, it didn't and it wasn't for most people. If in 1982 you would have looked at the world and said, you know what, I happen to have $10,000 and I want to invest it somewhere. How is the S&P 500 doing? What you would have discovered is that the S&P 500 was returning about 6.5% per year plus dividends, so 9 1/3, roughly 9 1/3% to the person who invested in it. Certainly not insignificant, but your $10,000 would have turned into $360,000, not $1.6 million. And in 1982, you could have put your $10,000 into a U.S. Treasury bond fund, and the 10-year U.S. Treasury bond at the time was yielding about 13%. So you have to make a choice, 13% versus 9 1/3%. This also meant that inflation was raging and you might not have even had $100 to put into an investment, much less $10,000. And for reference, here's the 1982 average, the 1942 average, and the 2022 actual level of the S&P 500. In 1942, the S&P 500 was 8.67. In 1982, it was 119.71. And currently the S&P 500 index is 3720. Super big disclaimer here. If I stopped right here and went into the tips section, undoubtedly I would have a few grumpy viewers who scrimped, saved, and did the right thing by what would be considered today's standards and did in fact achieve a great outcome 40 years later. For those of you who did this, congratulations, well done. It wasn't nearly as institutionalized in the 80s and even early 90s as it is today, and yet you had the foresight to invest and continue investing anyway. Sensible investing is always better than not, and note that the information that I provided is just simply deconstructing what happened over the last 40 years so that people can understand and not live in the past, but focus on the future. All right, let's jump into it. Point number one, if you are trying to catch up, the very first thing you need to do is move into retirement mode now. Now, what do I mean? Well, at some point in the future, you're going to be faced with the reality of not having enough income to support your current lifestyle if you have no retirement savings. When that happens, you're going to make some choices. Remember the levers we talked about. The first one is the amount that you contribute. The second is how long it was contributed for and the return that you received on those contributions. And the third is how you spend in retirement. If I was to make one observation, it would be this. If you're trying to catch up with your savings, you either have a modest savings, you have no savings, when you get to retirement, you would have to cut your spending dramatically because you would either be living on Social Security alone, Social Security with a bit of savings, or more likely Social Security with a part-time job of some sort. That doesn't mean it can't be done. People live on Social Security alone all of the time. In fact, 40% of the population lives on Social Security alone. But the way that they live during their working years and the way that they will live during retirement are completely different. They generally move to a smaller home, engage in activities that are free or largely reduced in price, spend time with family and friends, and don't travel a lot. Still, it could be a very nice lifestyle, but it is not the lifestyle of someone who has a lot of savings. Importantly, if you move into a retirement lifestyle now, meaning reduce your spending the way a retiree would, you won't be scrambling to figure out how to do it when the day comes. And also, with all of the extra cash that you have, you can put that into some of the investments that you've been thinking about, the 401k, an IRA, some of the other types of investments like annuities. All of that is available to you, but you need the cash flow to do it. Candidly, markets are down, so you might even end up investing at a bit of a discount. Who knows? The next point is tune up or turn on your budget. If you don't have a budget, you should. Billionaires have budgets. In fact, they have very complicated budgets. Why is this? Because billionaires can afford whatever they want. Well, the chances are good the way that they built their fortunes was through vision and ruthless cost control. And the fact is, left unnoticed, costs will spin out of control. In fact, research has shown that if you simply review your bank statements every month, your credit card statement, your debit card statement, your checking account statement, that over a period of 3 months, you will eventually reduce your spending by approximately 10% simply by becoming aware of what you're spending your money on that you shouldn't be, or more importantly, patterns that you're developing on how you spend your money. If you don't recognize it the first time, you'll certainly recognize it the second or the third time. Reviewing your spending is a very fundamental way to budget. In fact, most people would even think it's budgeting. You can actually go much deeper and gain the same level of enjoyment, often called utility, simply by having a budget, an active budget. If you want to know how to set one up, there are books out there on how to do it. If this is of interest to you, go to my website, holyschmidt.com, and check out the menu bar. As always, I will remind you at the end so that you don't have to stop the video right now. The next point is engage in part-time income for even more savings. As I mentioned before, if you go into retirement with Social Security alone or a modest savings, there's a reasonable chance that you're going to have a part-time job to supplement your costs, or you're going to have to reduce your costs so much that you can barely move. The reality is most people don't like that second choice, so they get some sort of part-time income. A lot of times those people in situations where they are looking for part-time income don't work for another employer, but they go into what's called the gig economy. The gig economy simply means that you learn something of value that you can sell 1 gig at a time, and that number can add up very, very quickly. The good news is that because it is job by job instead of an employer, you can turn it on or off depending on the needs of your personal commitments, your current job, and when you go into retirement, you can take it with you and turn it on and off then depending on what you have planned for the week, the month, or the year. Look to sites like Fiverr, Freelancer, or Guru to find work, and sites like Udemy to learn a skill to sell on these sites. Of course, these are just a few places you can go to find work and sell work that you do job by job. Everything from Uber to eBay provides you with this opportunity to do the same thing. So once you've cut your costs and freed up additional income from your current job, you've built out a second job potentially. The next thing you need to do is do something with the additional income. And that something generally is maxing out your current investment options. For most people, this means a tax-deferred option first, like a 401k, maxing out your 401k with your employer, or an IRA if you don't have an employer that offers a 401k. If you still have funds left, check out Roth options like a Roth IRA. A lot of that depends on how much money you actually earn, and Roth IRAs have an earnings limit. So step one for most people is to make a phone call to your company's HR department and ask them how to increase the contributions to your 401k if you are contributing currently, and if you're not, how to turn it on. If you're under 50 years old, in 2023, you can contribute up to $22,500 per year. If you're 50 or older, you can contribute up to $30,000 per year. Now, I realize that for many of you, that number sounds huge, but if you move into retirement mode with your spending, overlay a part-time job, you'd be surprised how quickly you can approach those numbers. The next point is to extend the amount of time you're going to work. When used in conjunction with the points that I highlighted above, extending your time at work is a retirement game changer. It also tends to make people a little bit upset with me, at least a few of you, who have set a date for retirement and you're going to hit that date no matter what. So the most that I can do is present you with the math. Let's say you're age 62 and you have moved into retirement mode like we talked about. You now feel like you're prepared to move into retirement, and even if you don't have a lot of savings, hopefully you do, you know that between Social Security, your projected Social Security payment anyway, and your part-time gig, you have enough to cover your retirement lifestyle. But here's the data. If you cut your spending by, say, 25%, you've moved into your retirement lifestyle, and your part-time gig also provides you with, say, an additional 25% of income, you are now spending roughly half of your income. Before, you were spending 100% of it. This means for every year that you work, you have an extra year on top of that of retirement savings, so you're getting 2 for 1. It could be larger if you work your part-time gig while you're in retirement. This also completely ignores the fact that your Social Security payment is going to grow the longer you wait. Every year past age 62, your Social Security payment grows between almost 6% and 8%, depending on how long you wait, all the way up to age 70. That's on top of any inflationary adjustments the SSA makes to your payment. The last point is to bring this all together, seek the advice of a qualified financial planner and make sure that they're acting as a fiduciary. Let me explain. Fiduciaries give you financial advice based on what's right for you rather than what products and services they can sell. They will generally advertise that they're a fiduciary, but one of the easiest ways to tell is if they tell you that they're a fee-only financial advisor. That generally means that they are a fiduciary. They also need to disclose to you if they have any conflicts of interest. Basically, if they have a product or service that pays them a commission and it's not obvious, they need to disclose that to you. One last point on this. Down below, you'll often see people talk about their financial advisor. In rapid fire, you'll have other people who agree about how great that financial advisor is, or they're desperately seeking the advice from that financial advisor. Understand that this is very, very likely a spam comment. It's someone who is probably paid by that financial advisor to direct traffic to them, and definitely somebody you don't want to do business with. Any recommendation that you have for a financial advisor should come from somebody that you know and trust. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider clicking subscribe and turning on notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. The next few years will undoubtedly see changes in the areas that retirees care about most. Inflation, market performance, medical costs. All of these and more will be coming at you very, very quickly, and I work very hard to get what's out there in here for you. So again, please consider clicking subscribe and turning on notifications. Also check out this video. It's one that has over 500,000 views. It's one of the channel's most popular. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.